All right, so we have finished, or we have not finished necessarily all the way through yet. And you know what I forgot to do at the very, very end of that is I forgot to tie my knot. And so for this knot right here, because we're not necessarily going to be yanking super hard on this end like we were with this string at the very, very beginning. We don't have to make it that double fat one. I'm just doing, your basic loop with the string back through it. I'm sure that's the technical name for it. And then I'm not gonna pull it super tight for right now because like I said, I'm going to go back and adjust it. So what I'm doing is I'm anchoring it where it's supposed to be with the knot that will eventually be, a little bit tighter. So what we're gonna do now is we're going to start shaping the pocket with the sidewalls. But like I said, the pocket gets shaped starts with how we string this top row of diamonds. If we don't stretch this out as far as we possibly can, and I've even done some things before too where I've strung not using the top row of diamonds, right? So where you're stretching and you're using the 8th diamond right here as your top string, just kind of playing around with it. And you can kind of create, some really interesting pockets. They're certainly not as pretty because you have some kind of winged mesh kind of going off the side of the sidewall. But in terms of functionality, they certainly work. But what we're trying to accomplish today is, stringing this Rabil up to look as beautiful as possible with this Iroquois top string, while also being super, super functional. So, and to test the functionality, we will go out and we'll go ahead and break this pocket in and y'all will see what it's like. So with having said that, what I'm going to do now is, as you can see, I left myself some excess top string. I'm going to cut it with about, and I know us guys are always a little bit more generous with our inches, about 2 inches right here, 1.5 inches, 2 inches. The reason that we don't cut it shorter is because if for some reason this were to come undone, in a game or in practice, trying to replicate a knot without a lot of string is very, very difficult, if possible at all. It's going to be something that you're probably going to have to use needle nose pliers for, and the strength of that knot is certainly going to be compromised. So what I like to do is I like to leave, and on this side, contradicting myself, on this side I didn't leave as much because some of that string was taken up by the width of this knot right here, right? So that's just something to think about whenever we're stringing. You can always leave more than what you need to leave. So I'm talking a lot, but I'm also trying to talk to my first time stringers out there, trying to save y'all some trouble with going back and having to unstring a stick because you don't have enough string. That's always a bummer. So right here, y'all, for our sidewall, I like to go about double the length of the entire head. Like I said, you want to make sure that you have more than less. Now, because this is an Iroquois top string, you're not going to need as much sidewall in theory as you would for just a regular top string, because where you're starting your sidewall at is, where you're starting to string your sidewall at rather, is actually going to be lower on the sidewall than what it would be if you were to be stringing it, with your traditional 9 diamond top or a 10 diamond top. So we're just going to go ahead and light these. The reason why we do is because if they start to fray, they're going to compromise the strength of the string, obviously, which is going to compromise the string job. And I know there's been a lot of y'all out there that have had a great pocket and it starts to break in a specific spot. And if you're not necessarily a stick engineer or you don't know how to keep up with your stick very well, it can be devastating. So you want to make sure that you're burning those ends. So what we're going to do, we're going to start it off with that exact same knot that we started off our top string with. So I'm trying to explain it a little bit better this time. I figure 8 it right here. Okay, I'm coming through both of these holes. This is a slow pull where I start to push up a little bit right here. Okay, so play around with that a little bit. Now the idea, like I said, this is going to be a lot thicker than just this. Or at least that's the hope. Or so it's worked. So what I do is I actually string both sidewalls probably about 2 holes at a time, right? So we're gonna do the top string, we're gonna do, and as you see, leaving room for access again at the top to make sure that if anything pulls out, I still have enough room for that knot. Now what we wanna do right here, similar theory to our top string theory, in that I wanna stretch this out as much as not as much as I possibly can, because you can stretch it out too much to where stringing the rest of the pocket can be a little bit more difficult. We want to stretch it out quite a bit. So what I'm going to do is, looks like we are going to go to the 4th hole beneath our top string hole. So that's actually going to be the 7th hole. And what actually, you know what? I take that back. We're going to go through the 6th hole. I was getting ambitious, y'all. And we're going to knot this first. Did I say 6th hole? I meant 5th hole. I'm stringing this with y'all for the first time, so. But what I am going to do is I'm going to make a knot with that said 7th hole. So the way that I do this knot right here, as y'all can see, so I have just, my string going through right here for my anchor. So now I'm gonna get to that 7th hole right here where I want to interlock, or I want to knot this mesh to the sidewall right here, and that's going to really help starting to form the channel. That's going to create a lot of hold in our pocket, give us a lot of feel, really make sure that the ball is staying in our stick as much as it can be, right? So what we're doing is from the outside going through this hole right here, then we're going to go through this first row of 10 diamond. All right, so because we strung our top row with 9 diamonds right here, okay, I'm going through my first row of 10 diamond right here. I'm going to pull, okay? I am then going to feed this string again back through, okay, the space in between the sidewall, okay, and the original string, and then I'm going to feed it back down. So y'all watch me with this. So we're here, and what I like to do to make these knots even tighter is I'm gonna pull on the strong part of the knot, or on the strong part of the string where it will knot eventually. And I'm really like anchoring it down, pulling right here using the table too. And then as I have that tight, I'm gonna pull down all of the way. And for those of us that are new to stringing, you're gonna lose some skin on your fingers. I'm letting y'all know that right now. So if you want to wear, I've used like baseball gloves and kind of cut off like the tips of the fingers for full on stringing marathons and stuff like that. But your hands are gonna get chopped up a little bit. Okay. So the important thing right here. All right, you'll notice that this mesh is actually on the inside of the sidewall. So you want to make sure that when you're pulling this down, that the mesh isn't over the top of the sidewall. If it is over the top of the sidewall and your knot is still strong, that's totally fine. You just want to make sure that when you're doing the other side, you're stringing it just the same. Okay, as long as you have this string super, super tight, everything should stay anchored into the spot that it is. And so we're going to do the other side now. So I'm going to go down to the 7th hole. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's where my knot's going to be. So I start at the 5th. I go all the way through the 5th right here. I bring it through the 7th. I bring it through from front to back. I bring it through that top 10 diamond. Now I feed it back through the string and the sidewall. Just nice and easy right here. And look at guys, this doesn't look very pretty right here. So if yours doesn't look very pretty, that's okay. How you make it look pretty is you're gonna pull down on the knot and kind of test out. I know exactly where to pull. So test out where you're gonna pull to make it tight. And then you're gonna pull as tight as you can, my friends. And voila. So far we have, our top string, and we have, our first anchor to our sidewall. Okay, and now from here too, what we can do is we can start to look at our top string. If there's anything that's, looking super, like it needs addressing, we're gonna go ahead and address it right now, because if there's any type of spacing that's really, really off, we wanna make sure that everything's even before we address the head. So I'm looking at this right now as I'm talking to you guys, and I'm certainly seeing that I have more space over here, which is not a surprise at all, because this is where I started the stringing off. So this is usually where the looser part of it's going to be. And so what we're gonna do to address that is, so what I'm talking about right here, y'all, is how this space right here is a little bit larger than this space over here. So I'm going to undo this knot. And you're asking me, why did you do this knot instead of just the regular knot? Because like I said, you want to make sure that when you're starting to string this and you're pulling on string, that you have something strong to anchor on. I consider myself a professional undoer of knots. So, you know, I can kind of work them a little bit quicker. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to feed my slack back through just a little bit to create a little bit more slack in this area right here. And then I'm actually going to pull on, oops, this string right here to start to take away and adjust that spacing on this side. And you want to make sure too that you don't pull through, and if you do, it's totally okay. I'm just gonna have to refeed it through again. All right, now let's see what we look like. Still looks a little bit tighter than this one. You guys like how scientific this is? So I'm literally just sticking my, I'm sticking my 2 fingers in there, and based off of, you know, how tight it is, you know, that's pretty much what I'm going off of for the spacing right there, as well as, you know, just the top row of the diamonds not necessarily looking like they're, you know, too off or anything like that. So this right here is good to string the sidewalls with. What we'll do after we're done stringing the sidewalls is I will adjust this top string more if it needs to. What's going to happen is as I start stringing this other side as well, is that this side will start to pull. And since, like I said, the spacing isn't off by, you know, anything that's glaring or anything that's going to really affect the way that the mesh breaks in, we're going to go ahead and we're going to jump into stringing the sidewall. So I'm not going to put my double knot on there right now. I'm just going to, because like I said, this is my maintenance knot. We're gonna go back and we're gonna work on this at the very end. So for those of you that have stuck around, and I'm gonna thumbnail this to make sure that you can just jump right to where you need to, and you can cut through all of me explaining through it. We're back to our sidewall. So here we go. So I am on my 2nd row now of my 10 diamond. Okay, so in order to create this channel still, I'm gonna want a really, really tight interlock or a knot. So what I like to do, so I'm gonna use an interlock. So what we're gonna do right here, as I talk y'all through it. So with this interlock, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through the back of the mesh, through the front, okay? Now we really want this to pull down, okay? So there's times where we can be ambitious with this. I'm gonna try and go 3 holes underneath my last one. We'll see what this looks like. What do I mean by we'll see what this looks like? So what I'm doing right here is I'm taking the string, I'm putting it through this hole. I'm then taking the string, passing it back over itself, creating this right here. And then I'm going to take the same string, pass it through that same diamond from front to back. And I'm just gonna start to pull down a little bit, and I like what I see. So it looks like we are not overstretching this mesh, and at the same time, we are still getting a pretty good stretch in, which is exactly what we're looking for to create a nice tight channel. And like you see right here, we're yanking. We're pulling down super hard, y'all, okay? And we're going to go ahead, and you'll see that after I let go of this, it comes up just a little bit. Don't be concerned about that. What's gonna happen is as we go through stringing this, like as I go through my next one, what I'll do right before I string it is I'm gonna yank it super hard again. I'm gonna take away any slack that's in those sidewalls. We don't wanna have any slack or any spacing in those sidewalls at all. That creates a lot of inconsistency, and we do not want inconsistency, obviously, when we're stringing. So doing the other side now, starting from the back, going through the front. We skipped 2 holes and went down through the 3rd one. And then we're gonna go back through that same diamond that we were using, going from front to back. And then you'll notice that I changed the way that I hold the heads right here. And what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to, you know, maximize torque, if you will. So here we go. And you're asked, well, Zach, why do you tighten it up that much and then it kind of unloosens a little bit and you have to do it the next time? Because what you're trying to do is all of that slack is going to go away as you string the next hole. Okay, so the important part is, you're kind of laying the foundation and then you're going to go back through and you're going to, add just a little bit more, to make it stronger. So we have a knot, we have a very, very tight interlock, both of these serving the purpose to really create this channel, all right? And so what I like to do is I'm going to now pull down on both of these strings, super tight, and just kind of see where I'm at. So right now, y'all do not see a channel, and I do not see a channel either. So what that means is we're going to create another tight interlock to pull the mesh down even further to help that channel really start to be more apparent. And this one right here, as you can start to see where this starts to pull, all of these diamonds now right here, as I pull on this one, they get larger, meaning that, and what that means is they're gonna get large and they're gonna stay that shape. And then the other diamonds that, kind of start to shape the pocket are gonna be a little bit smaller, and that's where you start to create that channel. So in layman's terms, at least, I guess, right? So I'm gonna use that same interlock, y'all. I'm going over from the back of the mesh through the front of it right here. Now I'm tight, super tight right here. So you notice that I just pulled down, really trying to lengthen it down again. I am now this time just going to skip one hole. So we're right here. I'm breaking a sweat. And now, like I said, from front to back, pull it down nice and tight. And then what you'll see is after I do this sidewall, the amount of channel that we just created with these first three strings and with these first three interlocks and knots and with our top string is pretty much, it really, sets the foundation for everything else. So front to back again, skip a hole, interlock. And I'm gonna do that one more time nice and slow for y'all because, so we're here. So this right here, sorry, is back to front. I hope I have not been missaying that. And then I'm going to pull both of my strings super tight. Getting a little sweaty. Got put in the work for it. And then as you can see, and I'm starting to shape the pocket right here as I pull down on the mesh. And with other mesh, this is gonna be a lot more apparent. With Marc mesh, like I said, it starts to break in a little bit, but you can see that we are creating this channel right here. So we are going to do, let's see what we got right here. We're going to do one more interlock the same way that we've been doing the last two. We're not going to skip a hole this time, so I'm going from back to front again, going from the outside to the inside of the sidewall hole, pulling through. Now you'll notice though this time that after we feed it back through and we pull down, that we're not pulling down and getting as much separation and as much tightness really from this diamond and putting as much stress on it as we were these other ones, and that's totally okay. So one more time over here. And by now, I'm flying through it with you guys because we've done this one a couple times. All right, and like I said, so I'm trying to check the shape of my pocket. So I'm gonna pull down on both of these strings. I'm gonna start to shape where I want that pocket to kind of see like where my channel's coming in, if there were to be a ball in my pocket. And as you can see, we're certainly getting much more defined. So we could, and this is gonna be something that y'all play around with a little bit, if we wanted to create a more defined channel, and there is such thing as too defined, meaning that the ball will get stuck in the channel, it's not gonna have a smooth release. we could do one more interlock. Now, we're not going to do that for this head. This is a very narrow head, especially compared to what I've been, using in the past. Graduated high school in 2009, so they switched to the college rules a year before, the whole 2010 thing. And, really been, I guess that doesn't make sense. Sorry, I graduated high school in 2009, but I guess, I started using a college legal head rather, that summer, really getting ready. So what we're going to do right here, just fun fact, random, I know, I'm sorry, y'all. So this is a different type of interlock than what we've done. So now we're creating the bag of the pocket, okay? We're creating a little bit more depth right here. These initial ones, though they were creating a little bit of depth in a way in terms of how we spaced them out, their real purpose for, these knots and these interlocks were to create the channel of the pocket, okay? These interlocks that we're gonna do right here now are going to be to create the pocket of the pocket, I guess, right? Like the bag of the pocket, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, and this is a really cool way that we can experiment with what our stick might look like if we were to use what we refer to as a single, which is what I just did right here. So I'm coming from front to back, which I hope I wasn't missaying earlier. Okay, so I'm coming underneath it right here, through the sidewall, pulling, and this would just be a single. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to yank up super hard, okay? Now what I can do though before I do that single is, if I'm curious as to what a double looks like, so what a double is going to be is I feed it through just like I do my single. Now instead of going to the sidewall right here, I'm actually going to go to my next row of 10 diamonds, going from front to back again. Now, instead of me, bunching up this mesh and starting to tie it off right here, I want to see what this is going to look like, right? So what I'm going to do, same thing on the other side. I start my double. I haven't interlocked it to the sidewall on other side. I'm going to pull down on my strings again. And then I'm going to start to form pretty cool stuff, right? It's like a metamorphosis. I'm gonna start to form my pocket, okay? And so what you'll see right here is nothing is attached underneath this diamond, but the way that this pocket starts to look right here with this double is a very nice shape, and we want that shape. So we like what we see right there, and we are going to now interlock to the sidewall on both sides. So because I liked what I saw as high as I saw it, meaning that I can, interlock by skipping one, the way that I had the strings pulled down and the way that the pocket was formed really had that double, just one hole right here underneath. So we're not gonna skip a hole at all. We're gonna take that double, we're gonna go from the outside of the sidewall, through the inside, feeding it back through. And then what I like to do right here is I like to make sure that I get this string underneath this mesh diamond, and then from that point I can really tighten it up and I can create that super tight sidewall, okay? And I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. So the double is already in place from the outside to the inside, just the next hole underneath it. As you can see right here, this is what I'm referring to by it being underneath right there. This would not be underneath. So you see how this string is above this little diamond? Now it is underneath. So now when I go to yank on it and I go to pull, I'm safe. All right, so here we are, looking good so far. So now what we're gonna do is we got a pretty good shape of a pocket right here. I'm anticipating that this next one is going to be a single. So I'm going to go ahead and go from front to back of the next 10 diamond. I'm gonna pull through. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side, from front to back of the next 10 diamond, pull through. Now because I'm not sure that I wanna string it that way, I'm gonna pull it all the way down again on both strings, holding it nice and tight at the throat, pushing my hands into the pocket, seeing how the pocket forms, seeing where this diamond sits in relation to the next hole And you know, from there I can see where I want to shape this pocket. So I think that a single will be great. What we're going to do is we're going to put it right beneath this next hole. Is this fail-proof? No, this is not fail-proof at all. There's been a lot of times where, you know, I've been ambitious stringing some channels, you know, really wanting to create, you know, a tight, while still being legal channel that still passes all of, you know, your stick checks and stuff like that. And there's times, especially with mesh that takes a little bit more breaking in, where you can create too tight of a channel to where breaking, like even trying to use it like the stick for wall ball or breaking it in for a shooting session is almost impossible, because the ball just, it doesn't have enough space in the channel to leave properly, while everything else is still structurally sound. So this is where we're at so far, and we are almost done. So I'm going to use that same technique that I just used for my last two interlocks on this next one right here. So I'm going to come from front to back, pull through on both sides. I'm going to grab the strings, pull down, grab at the throat, form my pocket, see where we're at. And now what this just showed me, after I formed my pocket, was that if I don't skip a hole, my pocket's gonna start getting really, really high, right? And so if I want a super, super high pocket, that's great. Now a super high pocket with a tight channel, plus an Iroquois top string, doesn't leave a whole lot of room for ball release. So what I'm going to do is I'm just gonna skip a hole. So I'm still doing a single. I'm just skipping one hole right here onto the next one. And then I probably did y'all a terrible disservice of not coming up and showing y'all what these look like. So let me come up here to the camera and give y'all an idea of what this looks like. All right. So we are almost at the end right here. It's looking like what we're gonna end up doing, there's a whole bunch of ways you can do your bottom string. It is really easy to do an improper bottom string that creates a lot of inconsistency with your stick. So you wanna make sure that as you're finishing your sidewall going into your bottom string, that you're not leaving yourself with too much mesh, so that way you're not getting you know, a pocket that starts to form lower than what you actually want it to, because that's not gonna perform how you want it to, obviously. So what I anticipate right here is we're gonna use this next 10 row diamond, and this is gonna be the last one that we use for our sidewall unless something changes as I string this. Now with this, we're actually gonna go from back to front, and we're actually gonna go from inside out, and we're going to use the last hole. So I'm gonna pull down like that. I'm gonna do that on both sides. And before I knot anything, can you guess what I'm gonna do next? You guessed it. I'm gonna squeeze the strings down, replicating what the pocket would be if it were to be tied. I'm gonna put my hand in the pocket to replicate what it would look like with the ball. And this right here, after we get our bottom string, is looking like a really, you know, sound pocket. So what we're gonna do is we're going to pull with all of our might. Everything is tight right here, and everything is tight because as I went on to the next sidewall string, as you guys could see, I was tightening up the work that I did before, right? So as I moved on to make another anchor, I really steadied that, you know, anchor that came before it. So that is how, you know, you create consistency in your stringing. And I'm just doing your basic make a loop, stick the string back through it hole. So the one that we talked about that we used as like a maintenance hole, but because now there's some right here, like you'll see, this hole's, you know, it's not super, super small, but because of the way that the ball hits the pocket and the way that it hits the pocket higher up here, this string down here isn't known to pop out as much, right? Not to say that it's not possible. Now I got some extra string left, It's a little bit more than I would like as I finish out stringing the rest of it. Now, there's a decent chance that, maybe after doing a little bit of a session with this, or even after breaking in the stick more, that I go back and I change the sidewall pattern. So I am not going to cut it at the knot, because that would not be very intelligent. 2.5 inches. And to burn, and you're thinking, well, you're not even finished stringing it yet, so like, why are you burning it? Because I know that I have more than enough string to finish this sidewall. With all of what we strung, what we would use almost this exact same amount of sidewall, right? So it's not like we would need 2.5 more inches to finish stringing off the stick if we were to need to go back and adjust anything. So let's go back and look at our top string right now. The finger test, still a little bit looser. So, and this is tight, very, very tight. So I don't know if y'all can see this. I'm pressing on this right here. There's not a lot of give to it. So, and this one has just a little bit more give to it. So, and that's where the spacing is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to one last time tighten this up just a little bit. Then we're gonna throw the bottom string in there. I'll probably even clip this out, to be honest with you, because, well, so what's gonna happen right here? So this is a tight space, as you can see. Okay, what makes it tight is that I have the same string going through the same hole right here. But there's different ways that you can avoid that, right? One way that you can do it is you can have it by feeding the string through a different hole. What I'm going to do is I keep a set of needle nose pliers on me. Now, because I am OCD, now this stick will work just well, just like this, but we want to make sure that it's perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some needle nose pliers, we're going to tighten it up, and I will be right back. All right, so even those pliers are actually in my lax bag. So we got some fishing pliers. They'll still do the trick, courtesy of my wife for Christmas. So feeding it back through. Why am I feeding it back through? Because I need to create slack. I need to create the slack to make the adjustment. Right, so there we go. There's my slack. Now with the slack, don't want to use the scissors. With the slack now, I can use it to pull. Is tight. It's a small string too, so don't expect the pulling on, and it's tight, yeah. So don't expect the pulling on strings to be friendly. It's not. It's not. And if you want your stick to come out properly, you're gonna have to invest in checking it to make sure that everything is the is the way that it needs to be. So, excuse me. All right, bottom string. So, full disclaimer, I do not like using sidewall strings for bottom string, but I'm gonna string it up for y'all. Actually, I lied. It was meant to be. Why don't I like using sidewall strings for bottom string? The sidewall string is strong. It's meant to be strong, right? It's meant to anchor your mesh into your sidewall. So having said that, that strong mesh sometimes in this spot down where it's tied in has a tendency, excuse me, to sometimes break the plastic down here by your throat. And it also has a tendency sometimes to wear through on your mesh, which is never fun. So what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to use, this is not a traditional shooting string. This actually feels like a shoelace, but since we're not using it as a shooting string, and since I pretty much despise shooting strings unless they're absolutely necessary, we're going to go ahead and use this as our bottom string. Now what I'm going to do right here, I can either string the bottom string along the last 10 diamond row that I used. I can string it, or I can string it along the next 9 diamond row. I'm going to string it along the next 9 diamond row. What that's going to do is it's going to give me just a little bit more pocket. Now, if I wanted a more shallower pocket, or let's say, for instance, I was running into maybe some stick legality issues with my pocket depth, what I could do is if I had it at my, if I needed to, I could move it from my 9 diamond to my 10 diamond, excuse me. So what I'm going to do right here is I only have one tip. So I started through the bottom, went from the bottom up, went through the first diamond right here. And so remember we have 9 diamonds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go all the way through the 4th diamond, going from the back through the front. And I'm going to bring it through this next bottom hole and start to pull down a little bit. And then I'm going to feed it through the next bottom hole, not going through any mesh yet, and pull through. We're going to skip the 5th hole and we're going to hit the 6th hole coming from front to back, and then we're going to finish off keeping everything symmetrical, going through our 9th diamond and inserting the tip, because we only have one, back through the bottom hole. And guess what, before we tie anything off, and what I like to do is I prefer oh my goodness, I prefer to have a smaller bottom string versus having a larger one. I feel like it creates more of a consistent feel with the ball coming out of your stick. Okay, so that, my friends, is really, really pretty. I don't know about y'all. That is, it's a spoon. It's the top of a spoon, I guess. All right, so let's check out our channel right here. I mean, and like I said, this mesh still has a little bit of breaking in to do, a lot of breaking in to do. But that's a really, really pretty pocket. This is the Rabil 2 head. This top string went lower than I anticipated it going. Like I said, this is the first Rabil head that I've ever strung. I've been stringing lacrosse heads now for, oh man, probably close to like 15 years. And I've kind of taken a little bit of a break in the last, I don't know, maybe a year. I haven't strung as many as I have been. So that could be a reason why this is a little bit lower. Now, I have no problem with this being this low. But like I said at the beginning of the video, what this does do is if you have more of an errant pass, one that's a little bit further away from your body, it's going to make catching that pass just a tad bit more difficult. It's not going to make it, impossible. It's not going to make it super hard. For those of you that have, excellent stick skills, you may not even notice a difference at all, right? What you will notice though with this is you're going to notice that the ball, especially, so this right here is going to be more of a mid to high pocket. But what I like a lot about this is when you're carrying, you see that, we have the ability to shift right here into a nice ball carry. But at the same time, as we have the ball leave the pocket, all of our diamonds right here are nice and tight to the sidewall. The sidewall strings, there's no slack in it. If this were my personal stick that I would be using for a game, and I do use Iroquois top strings, that is definitely what I use for the reasons that I explained, I would probably make this just a tad bit higher. Reasons for it, like I said, it makes catching just a tad bit easier for even those of you that have phenomenal hands. It's just something, just more surface area, right? And so with more surface area, there's going to be more chance of success. But just that feel of the ball coming off of the Iroquois top string, it's not about the look at all. It really isn't. And the green mesh, the pink shooter just kind of happens to be what I have right now. But if I all white, all black, solid colors. You want to go rainbow with it. I'm probably talking too much at this point. So, Iroquois Topstring. We will go ahead and have I'll get this thing out on the field, and we'll get some shots out with it, and I'll post an update for you.